desperately need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is Buffalo What's Next. I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Dave Debo.
And I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
After May 14th, how can we afford not to talk about race?
About education, about segregation, about humanity.
Since the dawn of this nation, racial violence has existed.
The way we have designed our society has a big hand in what occurred in that Tops Market.
The suburban area, everywhere. We must work and teach our children.
We need to make sure that we put more funding in our programs that help prevent gun violence and more money into art.
If we're going to have some real healing, we've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truths.
And we're glad to have you along with us on Buffalo What's Next. Coming up in the second half of today's program, Mark Blue, the Reverend Mark Blue of the NAACP will be here with Dave Debo. But in our first half, we're talking with Imam Fajri Ansari of the Masjid Numan on Fillmore Avenue. And of course, longtime basketball coach here in Western New York as well. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jay, for having us.
Most certainly pleased. And I'll try not to let this conversation devolve into all about basketball because I'm curious about tapping into your knowledge and experience. But let's talk about the community to start things off. You've been at Masjid Numan now for over 30 years. So you have a great understanding of that neighborhood for sure. Tell me what life is like right now along and for the people that attend.
Well, we know for Buffalo overall, we've had a very trying year for 2022. And I am happy that despite the challenges we've gone through, that we have kind of bonded together. I feel the community has come closer together in support, which in some cases, especially when you have tragic shooting and killing that's race-related, it can have a lot of offspring to a lot of violence and riots and ongoing hatred. So thankfully, Western New York, that didn't take place. And I think it's kind of true to the city over the years. I remember after the 2011, the bombing at the World Trade, and we had a rally out in front of the City Hall at the Lafayette, at the Circle,
right?
And we were able to share some words. And unlike a lot of other places around the country, we didn't have a lot of the aftermath that understandably took place, the hatred and the anger, towards the Muslim community. So that didn't happen as much, here. And so I'm happy in this particular incident with the Tops shooting that is, overall, I think is bringing people together. I mean, it certainly brought highlight to some elephant in the room issues that still need to be resolved here in Western New York as well in this country. But I think overall, I felt a sense of people, humanity overcoming that here.
That's good to hear, and we have heard that as well. And I'm curious, have people turned to their faith during this time? I mean, have you seen that from the people, the members of your community?
Yes, and I think that's a true testimony of the believer. We have verses in our book in the Quran. Just lose not heart nor fall into despair, for you certainly will achieve success. You achieve victory. If you are true in faith, and so I think that's important for the believer to understand that nothing is outside of God's awareness, that we're all going to be tried and tested. This is a part of our being the highest form of God's creation, which is the human family. And so it's a challenge. When you look at all faith, tells us about the forces of good and evil, and it's a challenge to really believe and to promote that goodness is on the rise, and there's more good people than there are bad. It's just sometimes the bad people have control of the microphone.
Right. I'm interested to also talk about Masjid Naman in the sense of how that community has changed, right? We hear stories about influx of immigrants coming to Buffalo, and most certainly you've seen that for your
our community goes back for many decades. It was historically rooted in the former Nation of Islam, which at the time under Honorable Elijah and Clara Muhammad, and it was a way to try to subtly introduce the principle of Islam, but more overtly directing the racism and the nationalism aspect that was empowering, making you feel like you were somebody important, and recognizing that your root in history was something that was great. So over the years, like most cities around the country, whether you label gentrification or just a natural process of people moving and immigrating into the community. So we've had influx in the city of Buffalo, many populations. There's been an increase in Muslim growing all over. First Somalians, and then you have people from Burma coming in, and then the more, I don't want to just try to name all, because I wouldn't be able to name all of them.
Sure.
But more recently, the Bangladesh community has really grown and increased on the east side of Buffalo, and they actually now in our services on Friday, they probably make up about half the population for Friday service. Not so much in the regular attendance or activities that we involved in, but for services. And it used to be decades ago, you probably knew every mosque that was in Buffalo, at least, but I couldn't even begin to try to say, because there's so many popping up, at different parts of the city around.
If I'm not mistaken, yours, this is according to something I read in the Buffalo News, an article from a few years ago, so the numbers probably aren't quite right, but I think yours was the second in the city, and now there's over 20.
I think, and I don't know, I know there was there's a Parker Street Masjid over by the University of Buffalo, has been there for years, but if we go back to the actual Nation of Islam Temple days, we're going back to the 50s, the 54, and then Lackawanna probably, the community there when they came over to work in the factories, you're going back to those decades. And then there was a community out in West Valley, that's going back, to that area too, around the 50s or so. But it's now, most of the mosques in the city, I think, are mostly from immigrant communities.
Hey, what about the Muslim community? And I'm asking for generalities of sorts here, but there are so many misconceptions. You talked about some of the issues that were seen after the 2001 World Trade Center attack that we're seeing.
2000. I meant 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11. But what about that? That I still think there are lots of misperceptions. At least that's how I see it. But what do you find? What are the things that maybe when you're talking to people who aren't really familiar with the faith that are misconceptions?
One of the first misconceptions of mine is trying to differentiate culture from the true tenets of the religion. Most people will probably think that most Muslims are Arabs, or they come from Arabs, but Arabs probably make up only a third of the Muslim population in the world. The Asian community is the largest of people who are Muslims in the world. And then Africa has a very, very large pocket. Then, so you have Asian, you have India, African. So they're far outnumbered than the Arabs, just because the Quran was revealed in the Arabic language and started in Mecca. Most people associate it, but when you make the pilgrimage to Hajj, you would see different was made a few years ago. And
what was that like, if you don't mind sharing?
It's very hard to describe, but it's not a vacation, that's for sure. People think it's one of the 5 pillars of faith. We have belief in one God. You offer your prayer, your worship. You give in charity and you fast during the month of Ramadan. And then the fifth pillar is that once in a lifetime, if you can afford to do so, you make the pilgrimage to Mecca. And you truly see all of the whole planet in its representation. You see people that look like people you know from back home, and then you just see different variations of, like I've seen, feature-wise, you would think that they were Asian or Chinese, but they would be darker than me, real dark. So you see very tall Slavic or European people. So, you're seeing a true universal picture of humanity when you make the pilgrimage. So when I first entered inside of where the Kaaba is, or the Haram, the mosque, I guess it's best to describe walking to a huge stadium, with 3 layers, and then there's people on the grounds walking, and it's almost like it's almost kind of like a motion picture type experience on the ground level, and so you just have to just pause, but everyone is there for the same purpose, and if not, you wouldn't have millions of people who would, without having chaos, without having some type of order.
It's interesting because, like you said, it's not a vacation, but the gleam in your eye in describing what you saw and the different types of people that you saw there, really, obviously, something that really moved you.
Yeah, it's like being, like I said, it's like being reborn. You can say these things, but you have to really be sincere and true. Like fasting during the month of Ramadan, it said if you fast for the period of 29 or 30 days, those who are able to, health-wise, to do so, that you're cleansed and like all of your sins of the year is forgiven. Well, it's also saying when you make the pilgrimage, it's almost like all of your previous sins or atonement is for your whole life is renewed, at that time. And so I would like to go again. I'm planning to go because the first time you just, your eyes are just so big, but now you're understanding the different locations, and there's certain rituals, but the true meaning of it. And most people, the other thing I would say maybe to the audience they're not really aware of this, it's not really about Muhammad. The Hajj is really about the life story of Prophet Abraham and his son Ismail being sacrificed. And the mother Hagar, we know the story, was outcast, and her looking for refuge for her son and finding a place in the water, we call water of Zamzam. That's part of the ritual running from the 2 mountains where she was looking to help. So it's really the father Abraham, all the main religion, the 3 major religions of faith, Christianity and Judaism and Islam, is really the universality is part of this process. So we follow in the example of Prophet Muhammad in making the pilgrimage, but it really goes back to the first house of worship that was established by Prophet Abraham.
We're talking with Imam Fajri Ansari this morning of Masjid Nu'an on Fillmore Avenue, and we're talking about a lot of different things. Of course, we also know Fajri Ansari is the head basketball coach at Buffalo State, formerly at Turner Carroll as well. And I definitely wanted to touch on that a little bit, but let's put that off for just a second. Would you mind sharing your spiritual journey with us a little bit? Because you came to this later in life when you were a young adult, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, my family, I was raised in New York City. I was actually born in North Carolina. I came to New York as a baby. But I can remember my grandfather being the treasurer, the Baptist church. So my core background was raised in as a Baptist. So I've learned those values of doing right and forbidding what is wrong, and actually the 10 Commandments, if you will. Was pretty much what we was raised on. And we pretty much went to church pretty regularly when we came in my neighborhood in South Jamaica, Queens, and then we moved over to another area, so we weren't in walking distance, for the church. So I remember going to occasion, it was a Methodist church in my neighborhood, and I was playing basketball as a youth and at a Catholic summer league, and then the local priest wind up recruiting me to go to a Catholic high school. So, so I have a lot of different exposure than just growing up in New York City. I remember we used to sell candy and things. We used to go shopping, and I remember going in Delancey Street. Then seeing people didn't know at the time, but seeing the people who were probably from the Holocaust, because I remember seeing the tattoos, and I found out later that they were there. So, then you have Chinatown. So you get, New York City, you get exposed to a lot of very different cultures. So in the 70s, a lot of gangs and drugs. There was a movie, Denzel Washington, American Gangster. It's a little bit of glamorized, a little bit, but that type of challenge was the time I was growing up. And I had a friend of mine who I played basketball with. He got involved in the Nation of Islam, and then he started. I saw him kind of like turn his whole life around and clean himself up, and that got me interested. And the language was talking about getting rid of the drugs in the community and the respect for the black woman, the African American woman, and those things became interest to me. So that's how I started, and I kind of waited to my freshman year of college when I came to Buffalo, the University of Buffalo, is when I decided to join the community. And at that time, Honorable Elijah Muhammad had just passed, and his son, Wallace D. Muhammad, Imam W.D. Muhammad, came, and his approach was more for the universality of Islam, and he also, thankfully, spoke about the importance of education, because being in college and being in the Temple of the Nation of Islam at the time wasn't going hand to hand. It's like almost like you're being sellout, like you're just being programmed. And but he really encouraged the educational aspect, importance, and it really kind of opened the mind to really more where my heart was always at anyway, and just wanting to help people.
And it's interesting I found a couple of videos of you online here before this, and one, you talked about your mother, and I'm going to use the quote here. She said, "If you can list all the things you've done today, you haven't done enough."
Yeah, that was Saturday morning. Saturday morning, you wanted we had chores. I don't know if some people even know what that word means, or know what the term is. But I was the youngest of six, so it was 8 of us in the house, and so we had to, you had to clean up before you go out, because I'm trying to hurry up and get out to the park as quickly as you can. So she said, "Well, what have you done?" So I was trying to say, "I did this, I cleaned that," and then one day she said, "Well, if you can list everything that you've done, then you haven't done much."
But that seems to carry on today. I mean, here you are, you're a head basketball coach full time, which, and anybody who knows a little bit about coaching knows what that means. And then at the same time, you're helping to run Masjid Numan. I mean, helping. You're almost a one person show in a lot of ways there, right? I mean, you're called upon for a variety of different duties on a daily basis.
Sometimes it feels that way, but no one can have any type of success without having good, support. And the cliche behind every good man is a good one, great woman, and I'd certainly say that. About my wife, and then other members of the community who like family, who we've been together. So I've known them since I've been a teenager. When I first came to Buffalo. But it's a very small core. And I think that formula really, you can use that formula for almost any congregation. Some might be a little more because the volume of the congregation is larger, but when it breaks down to who you can rely on, it's half of the people, then who you can call on is another half, that, and then who you really can depend on and trust, so that number really shrinks. And so it's just a small core group that really keeps an organization kind of going and moving. But it's you don't, if you think about it, it just would be just overwhelming, because some people, they know you just from the circle that they know you in.
Right.
Like if you're a basketball coach and they just only know you from coaching. And then the one thing we have yet to mention that you have a family, you have a family outside, which is supposed to be first, right? And so, your children kind of get, sacrificed because your time, because you have so many other, I have so many other sons through coaching and, and then the connection with their families. And so, I mean, that's a blessing too, because you have, like I can travel many places around the country and because of connections of former players or from the affiliation from the mosque as well, my wife. So, that's a blessing because you go almost everywhere you can go, you can have somebody that can host you.
And what about, and just to add or find out a little bit more, what about the mosque after May 14th? What were you called upon? What did you hear? What did you see and feel around the neighborhood, around your community?
Well, we try to be available and, again, just reassuring, because, again, I sincerely believe you will achieve the true prominence if you are a believer, and when God tells you not to lose heart and not to lose faith, then I give the analogy, it's like a stern, like your mother or your grandmother or your father telling you, straighten up, don't be defeated, don't lose, because you will see that promise victory, if you maintain your faith and you strengthen your faith. And so we try to support the people as you can. You're not trying to, because it's the families, really, it's the direct families that's mostly impacted. And you try not to, I didn't want, you saw so many people coming in from out of town, but you didn't want it to feel like it's being exploited.
Right.
Because, after a while, all the lights are gone and then the camera, then we really not looking at the core issue. It's unfortunate for someone that young to be fed all of that kind of rhetoric of hate is just really against the nature, and when you see that the callousness of it is like him and others, and then the Val shooting in Texas is almost like they left the human race, like they left their core humanity. Like even if you're angry at someone, and we know this goes from, again, the big elephant in the room of the history of. In fact, I saw not too long ago, I think it was NPR on a history of race in America. I think is an excellent video for everyone to watch, and it's not really explained enough the indoctrination over centuries and centuries. Race wasn't really utilized the language that much to 1600s or so, and it was more for just kind of like your lineage, But then colors got into play, and then what was the name, Morton or somebody doing the size of your skull to try to improve that, African descent was inferior. So you get centuries and centuries that kind of indoctrination, and then the outcome of you have a superiority thinking, and then unfortunately an inferiority thinking, and to have someone just fed that is just so desensitized. I mean, it's a lot of things that we have to really address, because I just think I got grandchildren now, and I just think how many murders do they actually see between video games and what they watch on TV, I mean, we had the road runner and somebody, fall off the cliff and then they get back, but it's not as hardcore. And there's cartoons, but now to just exaggerate that type of thing over and over again, because I'm thinking, how are you shooting people 80 something? I mean, what if you mad? How are you feeling threatened by that? So that's was just really hard. And then just to think about it, when can it happen again? Or like now with the former president's home being, all the rhetoric and against the police force and FBI and these type of things. So if that's constantly fed and promoted, we just have to have some kind of responsibility. And I think we're more of a threat when we feel that your identity is some kind of inferior. The Quran said that God made us all in the most excellent mold and the most excellent fashion. And that goes for every human being. And if you believe that, then I don't have to depend on somebody else telling me if I'm good or not, because God told me. And that's all that I really need to know, and that gives me a sense of security.
Fajri Ansari is our guest, Imam. Fajri Ansari is with us for just a couple of more minutes. And when I saw you this morning, I called you coach because you are a longtime basketball coach here in Buffalo, both at Turner Carroll's the legendary teams at Turner Carroll High School, which is now closed, and of course at Buffalo State College as well. Just curious about, if you can maybe put it into words to a certain extent, Buffalo and basketball. What does basketball mean to the community of Buffalo?
Wow, that's a kind of loaded question. I know when I first came here, the Buffalo Braves was still playing, and then Randy Smith, Buffalo State alumni, was playing at the Ord, and I was at the game that he got injured and saw the air leave the Memorial Auditorium, because I think a lot of people knew that might be the end of the Braves. There was already talk about them leaving. So it's a wonderful history there. I was in school at University of Buffalo. I played 1 year at the old Clark Hall gym on Main Street before we moved out to
at least one of us knows what that means.
Before they moved out to Amherst, and where it is now. The Randy Smith Summer League, where I got started coaching, and I wanted to give back to basketball because I had some neighborhood coaches that really had great influence on my life. And Howie Lawrence, he had passed away. He actually is Kenny Smith. He actually paid for Kenny Smith's tuition to go to Malloy High School. But guys like that made me wanted to just give back. So my first year actually was refereeing, and after getting cussed out for $10 a game, I said I think I ought to get into coaching. So I went downtown and got some kids around the old JFK Center and the old Willett PAL Center on Jefferson Avenue, and I didn't know anyone. I just started, and I got a team in the Randy Smith Summer League, and then that's how I got started. But I was, seeing some guys, Ray Hall, who played it, at Canisius, and Cliff Robinson, and I coached, Pro Trevor Ruffin, who's kind of forgotten about, but NBA careers, not many people come through here. Ricky Williams, guys who have a chance to make it through the NBA. I don't like to start naming names because there's too many,
Right, of
it's,
course.
Wonderful history. And then the Buff State, Dick Beard, the great teams they had at Buff State.
But there is a connection, though, at the end of the day, though. I guess that's what I was trying to get at a little bit about, Buffalo, it maybe gets lost because there's a pro football team, there's a pro hockey team, but basketball has its own special niche in Buffalo. Yes, absolutely. And some players, I tell now when they come to school, they're surprised that the Clippers is rooted in right, Buffalo. They don't know the LA Clippers. But yeah, and then it's I've always, with race relations and issues and those things that basketball and sports has a way to really cross those lines, avenues, give you avenues more than just your common going in and out in life. I think sports has a way to really can cross that. And then when you're a team and you fighting together and going through practice and sacrificing together, that bonds you. That really kind of makes you a family if you're really true in heart. So we appreciate that. I couldn't have said it better myself, that's for sure, and I do appreciate that. Our guest this morning has been Imam Fajri Ansari of Masjid Numan over on Fillmore Avenue, also head basketball coach at Buffalo State. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up next, it's the Reverend Mark Blue, head of the NAACP here in Buffalo. He'll be with Dave Debo. This is Buffalo What's Next.
Get all the trusted local news you need right to your inbox each weekday morning with the WBFO daily email. Visit WBFO.org to sign up today.
Watch Remembering Crystal Beach Park.
Crystal Beach was such an important part of the lives of anyone growing up in the Western New York or Southern Ontario area.
Relive those childhood memories with the WNED PBS original production, Remembering Crystal Beach Park. Now streaming on YouTube and the PBS video app.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter at WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
And good morning. This is Dave Debo. The Reverend Mark Blue is here. He's the president of the Buffalo NAACP. He's also co-chair of the 514 Survivors Fund, a man that's ideally in a position to talk about not only the fund, but obviously how the community is doing these days. Reverend Blue, thanks for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It is a great opportunity just to share some information regarding our community 3 months after we've been involved in this tragic shooting. One of the things that's going on is there is a healing process. It's slow, and there is some indecision on whether the top should open, whether the location is there. And I understand there is a great intrepidation about what's going on, and it's something that the question is always going to be asked: what do we do? Should it have opened? Should it have not opened? But we have a community that's still in great need.
And I see that debate largely being one that perhaps two opposing sides are both right in. Yes, the community needs its tops, but yes, people are still triggered by one that is open. And if one of those prevails, you don't have a supermarket. And if the other prevails, you have people who are still sad and upset that the supermarket is open. So those two can, unfortunately, coexist.
It's not that we can do anything about it. We can voice our concerns, but the overall community need is what I believe we have to focus in on. To have people being bused to get groceries and bus back is an old South routine that we don't want to have to go through. But for the tops to open as soon as it did, you're always going to have that. That will be the question of a lifetime, and I don't think we'll be able to answer that question. But we do know there's a great need in the community, even for seniors who go shopping at that Tops to get their groceries and things of that nature.
Is the broader solution another facility of some sort, be it Wegmans or Aldi or Super Savers, something along those lines?
That would help. All of that would help to give choice and to give a variety. It will help, but you still have some who will not go to that Tops because it's still in the same location. If there was another location, I think it would have been sought out. I hope it would have been sought out. But right now, we have this particular location in which they have done a great job in remodeling, but you still can't change the location of where things took place.
Beyond the needs of the neighborhood in terms of access to food, what else are you seeing? How are people doing?
People are coping. People are getting along. As a race of people, we are resilient, but still, it's troubling. It's disheartening. We have to get along because we have to, and life has not stopped. So we have to make those choices. We have to push through, and we have to remain focused on what needs to happen in our community. This has brought a lot of conversation with all residents in the community. This has brought a lot of conversation with all political affiliates in the community as to steps that need to be taken next.
Beyond just looking at what the needs of the community are, let's look at it a little more broadly for a second. Was this the catalyst to have more conversations between white people and black people?
What I saw is that there were a lot of ethnicities that came together in light of this. What I believe that the white supremacist movement and this individual thought, he thought they would have mayhem. He thought there would be an implosion. He thought there would be violence. But what happened, communities came together. Every ethnicity, we came together, and we came on the Jefferson site, and we had prayer. We came together to give out more information. We came together to help the community in the needs of food. We came together to give whatever assistance that we could to the community, and we're still doing that. There are a lot of agencies that are still out there. There are a lot of, and I'm going to say it like this, there are a lot of our business community who don't have businesses in that area that are out there trying to support. Now, the other thing is, why work businesses in that area?
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to look at. We need more jobs in that area. We need, that area now is highlighted nationally for what it has not been effective in it and what it has. You have people who are resilient, but you also have businesses that are not in the Jefferson area that should be in the Jefferson area that can help bring a more of an economic impact. I know they have developments there, but in those developments, in those apartment buildings, that money is not staying in the community. We need more of infrastructure in there for housing. We need more opportunity for people to get their housing fixed, roofs, sidewalks, siding, all of those things. The problem is that sometimes those monies are made available, but the hoops that you have to go through in order to get those funds to help fix up your home, to help fix up some of the infrastructure is very challenging. And that's what we have to do. We have to somehow streamline the process so that some of our seniors who are living in their homes, who are taking pride in their homes, and some of the vacant lots will disappear and homes can go in there as well. So infield housing too.
Dr. Henry Louis Gates at UB has written a lot about problems in the community, and one of the things that he's looked at is the difference between home ownership and incredibly high rental rates. You just talked a little bit about repairing the homes that are there. If there's a lot of renters, a lot of those homes are landlords' homes. How do we increase home ownership on the east side?
You need some different programs that can help out there. You have a lot of people who want to live in a house, their own home, and this is a proven fact that a lot more home ownership will help increase the value of the community, increase the value of the neighborhood, and those are things that need to happen expeditiously. They need to happen, but we also need to make sure that we have jobs available. I want to share with you that redlining still exists.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to stop that with some of the banks that are out there that are not giving home loans to individuals who are qualified, but because of the area in which they're trying to purchase a home, they're being not allowed to have a mortgage. So we have to curb that. We have to investigate that. As the NAACP, we want to challenge that as well for those banks that are out there. But we know we need jobs, sustainable jobs, so the income does not change and people can afford to have a home.
Let me pick up on that. Are there specific banks that you are either targeting or cajoling or working with?
Well, banks in general. I'm not going to name any banks.
Okay.
But I'm going to say that they all are on notice, that we're looking, we're watching, and to make sure that there's no indiscretions when individuals, if a black individual goes and asks for a loan and they don't get a loan, but a white individual goes in there and gets a loan with the same credentials, the same financial status, the same credit report numbers, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Talk to me about the flow of money, probably from government or maybe from private groups, foundations, what have you. Are there power brokers and gatekeepers that are keeping development from occurring on the east side? It's been 3 months. I think there has been a lot of discussion about making sure that there is change in the community, but I also see systemic issues, not even systemic racism, which is a whole other issue, sure.
That's a whole other issue.
But I'm wondering if you can address the idea of gatekeepers and bureaucracy and the current power system.
Yes, there are individuals, and we have to make sure that we deal with our political affiliates, and we put them on alert to some of the things that need to happen, some of the changes. One of the greatest power brokers that I know is the community. The community holds the key to change. When we find individuals who may not be doing things right, who are affluent, it's the community The community has the power to make some changes and to make some noise. As John Lewis said, we need to get in some good trouble. We need to make noise with those establishments, with those entities that are not doing their fair share in our community, that are holding progress back in our community. So it's very important that the community is engaged in the activities of getting things done. And they are. They are. This has raised a height of awareness to no limit, to where we want to now stand up even more so and say enough is enough.
Similarly, as bureaucracies can sometimes get in the way, I imagine internal power struggles get in the way. And I'm not making any accusations here, but I'm wondering if you're seeing some sort of split maybe between new guard and old guard. One
of the things that you can't do, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And you also have to look at the history of change. Change can sometimes be slow in the process. Our seniors who have been around, they know the ins and outs. And I understand that our newer generation, they are more vocal and boisterous. They are more, let's get it done now. But we have to understand that change is a process. And sometimes if you hurry change, you will mess up a lot of things. Those who don't remember the past are doomed to repeat it. And that's one of the things that we have to make sure that we work together in this, both the old and the new, the millennials and the seniors and the elders. We have to come together and have a plan of action to where we all can agree and even agree to disagree.
How does that happen? Do we need a community summit of sorts? Or is it just everyone pushing forward and eventually coming together?
Well, there is an opportunity for everyone to come together. And together we're strong. Divided, we fall. So it's important that we do come together and that we do realize the change that we need to have and then work on getting that change done. There's too many eyes and not enough U's in the mix, and we have to come together and work on it together.
Now, in addition to being the president of the NAACP, you are a reverend. Church groups have a huge role here.
Absolutely. The church has been the foundation, especially in the African American community, and the pastors and the religious leaders are there to help lend support. We're there to help continue the conversation because there are doors that are open to us that are not open to just the regular community.
Explain that. What do you mean?
The politicians, they go to churches during election time because the church is the gathering place, especially where there's a continuous audience on a Sunday. And in order to access that, they have to talk to the pastors. And the pastors can either give them a word of encouragement, yes, you can come in, or no. And that's one of the things about it. They come to the church because the pastors have the heartbeat of the community. If there's a wrong decision in government, most people are going to talk to their pastor about it. And their pastor has the opportunity to even call on the carpet some of those leaders that are out there and express the sentiment of the community because politicians need votes.
I don't want to be divisive. I don't want to single any politician out. But what is your message to them? If you were to pull one of them in the room and say, hey, we got to address this and this and this, what would you say to these politicians in general?
I would say, listen, how can we help you help our community? Because sometimes you put them on a defensive, you'll never get anything done. So we want to, as a pastor, my concern is for our people. As a pastor, the generations that are coming up is something that we need to really focus on. So let's see what good we can do to make sure these things happen so that our children and our generation of now are not being lost. So we need to have those hard conversations with politicians and others, business leaders as well, to look at how we can better help our community grow and heal.
Do churches endorse? Should they endorse?
No, churches do not endorse.
And you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
You want that?
Absolutely, because if somebody's out there doing something that's not good, fair, or right, we need to stand up to them. Just like the NAACP, we're a nonpartisan organization. And because of that, we have the ear of those who definitely desire office, who are in office, or aspiring to be in office.
The Reverend Mark Blue is here. He is the president of the Buffalo chapter of the NAACP. He is also co-chair of the 514 Survivors Fund. And today is especially an interesting day, or a good day, to talk a little bit about that fund. Applications open today.
Applications open today. There's a process in which any and all individuals who feel they have been a part of the massacre that has taken place at TOPS can fill out an application. That application is accessible through the nationalcompassionfund.org. That is the website. And you can scroll down to 514 Survivors Fund, and the application will be online at that time. I also want to share with you that the Buffalo Urban League will be assisting people. They will have navigators there, and there are some other sites that we can list as well that will have navigators to help individuals fill out the application. And to if there's documents that are required, I would recommend you go to the site, look at the application, and they can tell you if you need any additional documentation. They will also help you in filling out the application. For those documents that have to be submitted, some of them will have to be notarized, and the Buffalo Urban League and others, some of them have notaries right there. And you don't have to send the actual document. You would have to just make sure that it goes either through mail or fax to the right people in filling out the application. So it's very critical that those who feel they are aggrieved, those who feel that they are the survivors as well, as per the protocol, fill it out because it has to be verified. And the application process starts August the 16th and it ends on September the 14th. We want to make sure that everyone who is affected and applies and the application is verified receives the gift that is been donated and collected.
And at the end of the program, if people want to grab their paper and pencil now, at the end of the program, we will once again give you those websites and those places to go for more information. Who applies? Who is eligible? Because there has been a lot of discussion in the community about certainly those who lost family members. Obviously, they're in a category perhaps different from everyone else. But there has also been discussion about people who were in the TOPS or TOPS workers who have some lingering trauma or who saw things that have meant expenses for them. There are workers who lost work because of it. Is this a really big tent? Are they eligible too? Because a lot of the discussion I've heard in the community is that these people are kind of left out. Tell me more.
Well, we have made sure, and we try to do our due diligence now to make sure that individuals who lost a family member, individuals who were wounded from the shooting, individuals who were in the store during in which the shooting occurred, TOPS employees are part of it as well. Those who were there and even those who were not, because there's still trauma. Those who the area of consideration is in the parking lot area and right around the building of that TOPS. Those are individuals who are eligible to apply. Now, one of the things that we also, in verifying, this is not limited, but this is one of the steps, is making sure that maybe you were interviewed by the police as verification that you were there. So the application process has all of the particulars that are needed for an individual to fill out and to check out their eligibility.
What is available? Let's say someone did not lose a loved one or was not specifically physically injured. What kind of compensation are they eligible for? How big of a pot of money is it, and how large are the individual grants?
Well, it's not a grant; it's a gift.
Okay,
I want to say that.
And there's a difference.
There's a gift. There's a difference. There's a difference. It's a gift that will be given to the individual, and it's not taxable. And that's one of the things that we are looking at, making sure that no one should receive any harm from receiving this gift. And I say that because you have those who are receiving public assistance, those who are receiving some grants and some Medicaid, Medicare, social services. They should not be penalized if they are eligible to receive this gift. And that is one of the things that we wanted to make sure that or because I lost a loved one and I received this, well, that means I am no longer eligible for the assistance that I'm receiving. No, that it means you're not. That means that yes, you are still eligible for the assistance that you may be receiving. That's why we're taking great lengths to talk and work with individuals who are in that particular category. And I would say if you are, and if you apply, and if you are accepted, we'll talk to you, and we have individuals that will help you through that process. So it's very important.
What kind of funds could they get, and what do they spend it on?
That is still to be determined. That is still to be determined. When you receive a gift, that's yours. We don't tell you what to do with that gift. That is totally your discretion what you do with that particular gift. But as far as how the funds will be broken down, that is still to be determined because you don't know how many people fit in each category. So we want to make sure that we have that after we have the applications and those who are eligible. We know that those who lost family members are eligible. Those who are wounded and the severity of their wounds and even the follow-on care are eligible. Those who are in TOPS during that time are eligible. TOPS employees that can be verified by TOPS himself and also by the police. Those are things that we look at.
How large is the overall fund right now?
Currently, if you can go on the website, it would say 4.6 million, but we do believe it may be more than that because there are organizations that are, for instance, the Buffalo Bills selling T-shirts. Tim Hortons is selling a special donut. So it's going to take some time for all of that to come into play as far as receiving the benefits from those special gifts and special shirts that they have. But the fund will be closed and receiving no more monies September the 20th. The fund will be closed, and that's a matter of accounting purposes so we can know exactly how much we have and how much we can allocate. That's when the committee will come back together, look at the overall applicants and look at the overall total of the fund, and then make the distributions categories, the distribution amounts to those particular categories.
And the distribution is not necessarily just a mathematical process. If you have $1,000 and 10 people, then you do the math and you can figure out how much each person gets. That's not what you're doing here, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What sort of calculus do you undertake to figure out who gets what?
If it's one family member, an allocation will be made toward that family member, and then the other members would receive whatever is on that category.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we're fair with everyone.
If someone and their son or daughter were both in the TOPS, it would go to the parent perhaps?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a process to where the guardian can apply for those two, for that particular scenario. And there's a process to which we want to make sure that it goes to the right people.
How do you figure out who gets how much?
That's a process once we get all of the information, once the fund is closed, once we know how much money we're dealing with, then we will look at assigning monies to those categories.
In the application, do people, and I heard what you said earlier about when you get a gift, you don't necessarily have strings on it. In the application process, what do you ask them? Do they say how they want to spend it?
That is not even a part of the application. How they're going to spend it is not a part of the application process at all. Once you have been certified or accepted, and once everything has been validated, it's a gift. It's yours. We do not tell you how to spend the gift that you have been given. That's totally upon the individual. Now, there's also a process to where, depending on, there's a process to if you would like to have some information on investing or things like that, that will be available to you as well.
So people will be, I hate to use the word divided up, but people will be categorized. You'll have a category of people, I imagine, who lost loved ones. You'll have a category of people who were physically injured.
Correct.
And then tell me a little bit about what the other categories are starting to look like to the degree that
you have the categories of TOPS employees. You have the category of survivors who were in the store, in the parking lot area. And then you also have employees in TOPS who were not at the store. So you have actually, and this is new to even the Survivors Fund, we added that category to make sure we covered everyone who would be affected.
If a shut-in, for example, has spent extra funds to do Instacart or some sort of online shopping, that is a cost to them as a result of the shooting. Is that something that would make them an applicant?
No. You have to be in the store. You have to be present in the store.
Okay.
So it's not for someone who was an online shopper, but you have to be present in the store.
Some of the community has needs that will not be met by this fund. That's just a byproduct of the way it's set up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you do for them?
We have no provisions for those particular individuals.
Let me rephrase the question. What does the community? Because I understand the fund being different. What does the community do for them?
When we look at what's happening in our community right now, there are a lot of different services that are being provided for the community. Even counseling services that are being provided for the community. And from what the county was saying, that's still going to be an ongoing process to help the community heal. There are a lot of different agencies that are coming in the community to help them heal as well. There are healing circles from different organizations that are there to help them heal. This is a continued process. Once the fund is over, the fund is over. There is another organizational fund called Help Buffalo Heal, and that's being used to look at what we can do to make that area better. So there's a lot of different agencies and helps that are still being provided to the community, and not just now, but tomorrow and for years to come. You're going to see these agencies continuing to provide, to help and support, to make Buffalo better, to curb what the white supremacists thought he could do in disrupting and dividing Buffalo. He may have disrupted us, but he did not divide us. What he did was to make us stronger, and we're stronger together.
How do people get in touch? Applications start opening today.
Yes.
Where do they go? What do they do? How do they access not only the application, but some of the other services you spoke of, the guides that will take them through the process?
Well, I do know that Buffalo Urban League, they're located on Jefferson. They will be a spot or a resource in which they can have navigators, and they will be ready to help individuals go through the process. The Resource Center on East Ferry is also a site that is being used. I just read in the news that the Macedonia Baptist Church is supposed to be a site as well. But I do know that the Resource Center on the East Ferry will be a site to have navigators. Those navigators will be possibly eligible to go to homes of those who are still affected, who haven't left their home, or who are still dealing with the trauma of the 514 massacre.
All right, here's that paper and pencil part if people wanted to write down some resources. The Buffalo Urban League is at buffalourbanleague.org, and their phone number is 250-2400. Again, that's 250-2400. The actual application is online somewhere. Where do people go to access that?
The people can access the application on nationalcompassionfund.org and scroll down to Buffalo Survivors Fund, 514 Survivors Fund, and you can get the application online as well. One of the things that they wanted to do is make the process very easy to where you can even apply on your phone, because we do know that the majority of people have a cell phone, so you can start the process even on your cell phone.
Great. Reverend Blue, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Reverend Mark Blue is the president of the NAACP Buffalo chapter and also chair of that 514 Survivors Fund.
Co-chair.
Okay. We don't want to get the people that you're chairing it with upset. He is the co-chair of the 514 Survivors Fund. Reverend Blue, again, thanks.
Thank you.
This is WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown. I'm Dave Debo. Thanks for listening.